Ethan stood at the sink, drying his hands with the dish towel that always smelled faintly of lemon soap. The house was quiet, except for the ticking clock above the fridge. When the front door opened, he didn't turn around right away. He expected the usual. Keys dropped in the bowl, a sigh, maybe a tired smile, but there was nothing. Just the sound of her footsteps pausing behind him. He turned, smiling gently. "Hey." Sabrina didn't meet his eyes. She didn't smile. She stood in the doorway, clutching her purse like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "I need to ask you something," she said, voice brittle. "Okay." Her throat worked as she swallowed. "Please don't come to the wedding." Ethan blinked. "What? Why not?" A pause. Then, softer, like she wished the words would vanish even as she said them. "I don't want people to know you're a mechanic." The towel slipped from his hand and hit the floor. He stared at her, heartbeat suddenly loud in his ears. Somewhere in the house, the clock kept ticking. Ethan stood frozen, the silence between them stretching like a crack across glass. His mind fumbled, trying to make sense of her words. Not come to the wedding? Because he was a mechanic? The job that had stained his hands? Sure, but also fed them, clothed them, carried their mortgage, built their life. The job he'd chosen with pride because he was good at it, because fixing things had always made sense when the rest of the world didn't. He stared at her, searching for a flicker of guilt, of softness, of anything human behind the coldness in her eyes. "I already told them you passed away," she added flatly. His breath caught, not just excluded, erased. To them, he didn't exist. He had died. She had buried him with a lie and moved on without a eulogy. It was no longer about a wedding or embarrassment or appearances. This was a clean break, made crueler by the quietness of it. No screaming, no plates thrown, just a decision made and spoken like an afterthought. Ethan looked down at his hands. Cracked knuckles, grease shadows that never really faded, the ghost of a wrench still etched in his palm. These hands had built engines, held her through hard nights, fixed more than just cars. And now they trembled. He didn't ask why again. He didn't beg. He just stood there, feeling the moment split wide open, knowing deep down this wasn't a fight. It was a farewell. Ethan packed slowly. A few shirts, a pair of jeans, his toothbrush. The duffel bag was light, but it felt like it dragged behind him with every step. He didn't say anything as he passed her in the hallway. She didn't look up from her phone. No tears, no sudden reach for his hand. Just silence, the kind that meant it was already over. Outside, the sky was turning gray with evening. He walked down the block, past the bakery they used to go to on Sunday mornings, past the bench where she once fell asleep on his shoulder. Everything looked the same, but it had all shifted. The streets weren't theirs anymore. They were just his now, and even that felt temporary. The motel was cheap and cold, the kind of place where no one asked questions. He lay on the stiff mattress, eyes open, staring at the cracks in the ceiling. Sleep came in fits. He didn't cry. The sadness hadn't reached the surface yet. It was buried beneath something heavier. All night, one question looped through his mind, like a whisper he couldn't turn off. When did I become a secret? The garage smelled like oil and metal and something warm, like the earth after rain. Ethan stepped back into it without ceremony. No dramatic return, just the quiet rhythm of normal. The clang of tools, the murmur of engines, the occasional shout from someone under a hood. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. It was his. His co-workers nodded when he walked in. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "You good, man?" he asked, eyebrows raised. Ethan offered a faint smile. "Yeah, just tired." Marcus didn't press. They never did here. But Ethan caught the sideways glances, the concern beneath the grease-streaked foreheads. He brushed it all off and threw himself into the work. He changed tires like they were puzzles that needed solving, tuned engines with a quiet intensity, stayed late, sweeping floors, organizing tools, polishing chrome that no one asked him to touch. The ache in his muscles dulled the one in his chest. One afternoon, a well-dressed man stood by the bay door, watching, older, tall, with the kind of confidence that came from money. Ethan didn't look up until the man spoke. "You do good work." Ethan wiped his hands on a rag. "Thanks." The man stepped closer. "My daughter brought her car here. I own a few dealerships, seen a lot of mechanics, not many like you." He paused. "The world runs because of men like you. Don't forget that." Ethan nodded, throat tight. For the first time in days, he felt seen. Ethan sat in the break room, the hum of the garage fading into the background as he unlocked his phone. He scrolled absently through messages, emails, nothing urgent. Then something caught his eye. A post. Sabrina's sister's wedding, tagged with a few blurry photos and a dozen congratulatory comments. He almost scrolled past it until one comment made him freeze. "So sad about her first brother-in-law. Died years ago, I heard." His thumb stealed over the screen, the words burning into his mind. "Died?" Ethan's chest tightened, his breath coming shallow. Sabrina had not just asked him to skip the wedding, she had told everyone he was dead. He could almost hear the coldness in her voice again as she'd casually brushed it off, as if it was nothing, as if he was nothing. Fury churned within him, but he kept his hands steady as he scrolled down. There were more comments, more people talking about the tragic loss of her first brother-in-law, as if his death had been some kind of public event. Her entire family believed it. They had transformed him into a ghost, a tragedy they could talk about but never confront. He felt something shift inside him. He didn't want revenge, didn't want to tear her down. But he did want the truth back, his truth, and he wasn't going to let her bury it anymore. Ethan sat at the small desk in the corner of the garage, the fluorescent light buzzing above him. He could hear the sound of the wrench hitting metal in the background, the steady rhythm of work. But his mind was focused on the task in front of him. He took a deep breath and began to write. It wasn't to Sabrina. She didn't deserve his words. Not anymore. This was for her father, the man who had stood in the corner of their wedding, shaking his head at the grease stains on Ethan's hands, the man who had never really looked him in the eye. He attached a photo, himself, smiling in front of a restored engine, hands proud but unpolished. The picture said it all. This was who he was. This was what he did. He wrote simply, "Your daughter said I was dead. I am not. I just fix engines. That used to be enough. No apologies. No explanations." He sent it off. And as he clicked the send button, it wasn't about expecting a reply. It was about reclaiming what was his life, his story. Days passed, the hum of the garage never stopping. Then one morning, the engine's growl was interrupted by the purr of a black car pulling into the lot. Ethan looked up, his heart skipping a beat. A man stepped out, a tall, well-dressed figure. Sabrina's father. Sabrina's father stepped out of the car, his eyes tired. No suit, just a man in work boots. The years had carved lines into his face, and he looked every bit the stranger he'd always been. He didn't offer pleasantries, no preamble, just the weight of the moment. "I had no idea," he said quietly, his voice low but clear. "I believed what Sabrina said." Ethan didn't say anything, just nodded. He had no need for an explanation, no need for more words. The older man took a step closer. "I don't care what you do," he continued, his gaze steady. You were always the only one who smiled at my stories. I never forgot that. He extended his hand, firm but not rushed. A handshake, strong but without pretense. Ethan shook it, feeling the connection of something real, something human in the simple gesture. Without another word, Sabrina's father turned and walked back to his car, the engine starting up with a soft hum. He drove off, disappearing down the road, leaving Ethan standing there in the stillness. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt calm, like the weight of 1,000 unspoken things had finally lifted, and he could breathe again. No apologies, just truth. And somehow, that was enough. Ethan walked back into the garage, the familiar smell of grease and metal grounding him. Marcus tossed him a rag, grinning like nothing had changed. Ethan caught it, wiping his hands, feeling the quiet satisfaction of purpose. The soft rock song on the radio played, its familiar chords drifting through the room, a soundtrack to life that kept moving forward. The engine roared to life again. Another day's work waiting. The hum of the garage felt like a heartbeat, steady, unbroken. Ethan looked around, his gaze settling on the worn tools, the engines in various stages of repair, and the man working beside him. This was home. This was his world. And for the first time in a long time, it felt enough. "My name is Ethan Cole," he said quietly, his voice steady. "I fix what is broken, including myself." As he went back to work, the camera, if there were one, would pan out, showing the city beyond, the streets, the buildings, the world in motion. It was vast, unchanging, yet Ethan had found his place in it again. He had been erased, but now he had rewritten himself, and that was the only truth that mattered.